morning, Bitcoins!
This is Mad Bitcoins live from the Bitcoin 22 conference in Miami. We're joined by George, a Bitcoin artist. How's it going, George?
Going great. I'm just so happy to be here. Great event. Lots of people, great speakers today. Lots of big news coming out. Tarot, lots of great art. Having a great time.
So this is your art right here. It looks like oil paintings. Which ones have to do with Bitcoin here today?
Well, really, the Bitcoin is all about the Bitcoin is Venice paintings. And this was done in conjunction for the book, Bitcoin is Venice. And Alan Farrington, the author, was here just a little while ago. We were talking about his book along with Sasha Myers. And they asked me to develop 4 paintings, all using kind of an orange background. And we produced 4 for the book cover, and they selected 1. And then we're going to auction the other ones off today. And what's nice about that is half of the proceeds are going to go to the Human Rights Foundation, which I strongly support them, and I hope we have a good auction on that. They have very low opening prices on them, so perhaps we'll get some good bids.
Well, I do know Bitcoiners love the orange. How is Bitcoin like Venice?
Well, if you look at Alan's kind of premise to the book and to Venice and Bitcoin, you realize that there's a transitional period that is Venice, and it talks all about money, lending, credit. That same revolutionary period is going on right now in Bitcoin, and we are at the very beginning of that revolution. It's like year 1500, and we are at the very forefront of this brand new monetary asset.
So it focuses on things like the Venetian Empire when they rose up from Venice and conquered the area with both mercantile and weapons. Yeah.
And also their monetary system. Really, it was a trifecta, and the monetary system was probably the most important, including the banking and the idea of having a credit or the ability to float a bond. It was revolutionary at that time, and just as Bitcoin is a revolution today.
Very few people know that Venice used to be a large empire, but I was reading in Neil Stephenson's Termination Shock about the ancient Venetians and some of the large families and what they were doing in the book to fight climate change. So it was a really interesting tie-in.
Yeah, I was not aware of that myself. I'll have to look that book up.
It's really great. It's like 20 years in the future, climate change is happening, and a lot of the book is about kind of Netherlands, City of London, Venice, places that are going to sink unless they do something.
Well, that's fascinating. And, we really do need to think about that. And I think that Bitcoin is the solution for climate change. And I think it's also going to change how we think of projecting force in the future. Bitcoin itself it's a peaceful revolution. And unfortunately, the Venetians did have to have a very strong standing military presence, even if it was contracted out. But Bitcoin hopefully will fix that.
We've talked a lot on my shows about how Bitcoin changes the way that you spend money. Maybe before you would just buy something that would wear out, whereas now you're like, if I can get the really nice leather version of that, it'll last longer. I can stack more sats. I can save. So it changes your time preference. Whereas if you're using a credit card or fiat money, you're like, I better spend this. It's going down in value anyway. This could help the environment, don't you think?
Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the problems with fiat currency. I mean, you nailed it. It creates that velocity, or that it's like a long time preference. You don't have the ability to project your power in the future. You know that you're trying to store your wealth. You know that it's evaporating before you, so you spend as quickly as you can. In hyperinflation, you literally do spend as quickly as you can. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And Bitcoin does change how you view purchases. I think Bitcoin is actually it changes how you view art. I mean, I believe that just as in Saifedean's book, both books, I think his discussion about art and architecture, there are really good valid points there, that Bitcoin is going to be able to allow people to project in the future ownership and how they're going to pass things on to the next generation. So,
well, it sounds really great. How'd you get into Bitcoin art?
Lynn Alden's first got me started down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. But after that, I once you start reading, about Bitcoin. And it takes a little bit. All you have to do is have a little bit of Bitcoin, and then the next thing you know, you're down the rabbit hole. And this series of paintings for Bitcoin is Venice, Alan is really the one who got me into the idea of using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange and also in self-custody. The idea of being able to have a hardware wallet and cold storage. So he also helped me down that rabbit hole, which was great.
It is really amazing once you get some and you send it around. Once you get a hardware wallet, you send it to your own, bank that you put in a shoebox or a vault or whatever. It does change you right away.
It does. It does. Once you understand the power of that, and we've seen recent events that have shown us the power of that, when you see that in action, for instance, we know that you can cross borders with if you can memorize your seed phrase, you can walk across just like you and I are now. They can strip you naked. They can give you a pair of pajamas and send you on to another country. And guess what? You've got your wealth intact when you leave. In fact, you can basically just flip them off and keep right on going.
In the old days when you used to try to flee the country, you'd fill your car full of gold, and then you get to the border and they'd say, "Why is that car so low?" And they would find the gold. Not true with Bitcoin.
Exactly. And in fact, recently, one of the things when there's great conflicts like we're going through now, countries, they install capital controls immediately. You're not allowed, you're restricted from being able to take any of your own wealth out of the country. Well, how wonderful it is when you can take Bitcoin inside your head. That solves a huge problem for people. And all those seizures that we saw at the border of gold and dollars and currency, that would be a thing of the past.
Well, and Bitcoin's also kind of like a yin-yang, where it's good for the Russians to avoid sanctions. It's good for the Ukrainians to get donations. You can't take either one away. It just comes with the territory.
That one expression, "it's all good for Bitcoin," is illustrated by that. And hopefully, once again, like I said, I honestly think that Bitcoin is a peaceful revolution. I think it will stop so many of the conflicts and the wars that we see going forward. And if we truly go to a Bitcoin standard someday, I do think that it's an environmentally good input. Just going forward, I don't see how it can't win.
I agree. Do you have any new Bitcoin projects or art that you're working on?
It's interesting that you say that because now that Alan got me not only into this new concept of medium of exchange storage, now I'm also thinking about taking my traditional art and using that skill to start producing work that incorporates more of the Bitcoin in the actual art itself. So next year, if I'm back, hopefully I'll have some pieces that have more of the Bitcoin, keeping along the same idea of Bitcoin as Venice, in my work.
Well, a lot of people just paint pictures of MadBitcoins, so that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I'll think of that.
It's a little controversial, but do you have any plans to NFT your work?
No, I will tell you something. I started investigating that. I've got some real concerns about NFTs. For instance, what if the Ethereum blockchain goes away, or it goes to proof of stake, or it doesn't? What's going to happen in the future in regards to Taro? That was just announced here at Bitcoin conference. That could be huge. Basically, if that is successful, you'll be able to do every single thing that they've been working on for 10 years now. Smart contracts, DeFi, NFTs, all of it will be on Bitcoin, and it'll be using the Lightning Network. So maybe I'd rethink it then. Other than that, though, I am a Bitcoin maximalist, I guess, really.
Well, they do have some Bitcoin NFTs on Rare Toshi. They're not quite as popular as the Ethereum ones yet, but it is an option. I like to think of the NFTs kind of like an artist's signature, just in the way that I would collect like a signature of a rock star. I would collect the NFT signature of an artist, having a connection to the artist that way. And that's as meaningful as you want it. I mean, I bought some like signed books because I was like, I want to own the artist's signature. It's to other people, they don't care about those books. It's meaningless ink on paper. It's the same as whatever. But I do think it's an interesting option for artists to be able to sell kind of a signature, or especially for a digital work. It's finished and you're like, okay, I'm done. What do? You don't have a nice original to sell. If you could sell that original signature as a, touched by the artist, and then spread it around, I think it could be really valuable for artists, and it has been so far. So
yes, and I tell you, I do support anything that helps artists. It's a very difficult enterprise, business, career And the other thing is you want to try and somehow give artists an avenue to express themselves. And so if an artist, feels that that's how they wish to express themselves. The other thing is there are many of the digital art experiences that I just love. I mean, visually they just are striking, and so I just love that. The idea.
Well, and there's things you can't do in traditional painting, like animation, sound, video.
Well, pigments are not light. I mean, no matter how much you attempt to attract that concept to produce something that is light. I've had many people look at my work and say, wow, the light is incredible within the work, like in the Bitcoin is Venice. But you're not producing light. It's not a screen. There's nothing coming out of that. You'll never squint your eyes because it blinds you. And what's wonderful about some of the images that are digital and that I like is that power of the light that comes out of them.
I saw a great piece in Ireland. It was from Spain. It was Sorolla, and he had all the paintings of light. He was like Monet's famous favorite painter. And I see a little bit of that in your work, especially the light coming in from the Venice pieces. It's got a great shade to it.
Yeah, I admire that artist in particular. I know exactly who you're talking about, and you're right. A lot of the great masters, they've influenced me, just like all art influences you. You can walk around here and look at all of this great work, and it influences you. You can't help it. If you're an artist, it should influence you because you want to stay open to new ideas.
I think that's a great note to end on. And where can people learn more about your work?
Well, you can just type my name into Google if you want. Just type George Bodine in. I'm the first thing that comes up as an artist. So.
All right. Thanks so much, George, for the interview.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Bitcoins.